afternoon, everybody. Today, we are going to be talking about some imaging, what is imaging, the benefits, and we're going to end up walking through the process of imaging. I'm going to start off with a definition. What I consider imaging. It's basically a snapshot of an operating system with a specific group of settings that can be replicated to other computers of the same model. What are some of some of the benefits of imaging? Are a good one is it saves time and resources, and under that is basically there's faster deployment times with imaging. Imaging automates tasks. It minimizes new computer preparation time needed to get a computer up to a certain level or set of steps, and it requires less time and hours. I should say, it requires less time and resources to accomplish the same tasks. Another great benefit of imaging is standards. You create an image with a certain group of settings, and those identical settings are applied to a group of computers across the board. This creates a baseline of settings for all those computers. So when and if you come to a troubleshooting standpoint, that these settings that are documented in the image are already completed on this particular computer or these computers, whatever might be in the scope of work. A benefit RCS offers is, with our images, are all the RCS registers that we sell come with an RCS image, and gonna kind of talk through that a little bit. So essentially what we do is we go through and we make 2 to 3 hours of changes on an image. We document those changes. Then once those changes are done, once they're documented, we go through and we capture the image. We then deploy the image to another computer, and then we actually walk through the deployment steps to install Counterpoint. And that really validates the image and just kind of streamlines the whole imaging process. If there is a problem during the testing phase, then kind of roll back a little bit and then adjust the image as needed, and kind of revisit that process about halfway in and continue on until all those any challenges are addressed. RCS also offers a custom imaging service. So if there's a model register that you would be using, we offer that service to work with you to create an image for that particular computer and walk through that same process that we walk through. Another great benefit to imaging or images is allows for really quick troubleshooting, because that you have those settings that are applied to that computer, so you can kind of rule out those settings, especially if that one problem might be happening. That problem might be happening on 1 out of 20 computers. So the likelihood of it being that those particular settings are unlikely. Now we're going to kind of walk through we're going to add some, next slide, thank you. So at this point, your computer's powered off. You've already installed the USB stick and you've powered on the computer. And at this point, you're going to select the UEFI USB partition 1. And that's going to boot to that USB image drive. And that USB image drive already has Windows PE, a really stripped down version of an operating system on it. So this particular image drive is configured for a CX7, and it automatically goes into the software and is ready to apply. It's, you're prompted with this, which is basically telling you that you're going to override the existing hard drive in the computer. And you would want to select yes here. And then at this point, it walks through the imaging process. And this process can take anywhere from 20 minutes to 1 hour of time, depending on the model of the register. When you get to when the black screen is presented at the very end, that's the signification that the image has been applied properly. And at that point, you would manually power off the register, disconnect the USB drive, and power on the register. So a couple different ways that the image can be applied are over a network, from a server, or using an image drive. After the image is applied, there's a few things that you're going to want to kind of walk through or think about. One of which is going to be renaming the computer. You're going to want to rename the computer is kind of the first step. I like to apply Windows updates on that computer. Depending on when you build your image, I would roll that into the image so you can minimize the Windows updates that need to be applied. That's another great benefit I didn't really talk about, but that's incorporated into the image. You're going to want to add it to either a work group or a domain, however your network's configured. And then essentially at that point in time, you're ready to move forward with a Counterpoint install and configuring the devices.
Okay, we have a question from David. What OS version are the current images for the different model POS?
So right now it's Windows 10, and I believe it's LTSB for some of them, and but essentially it's Windows 10 Pro, just different versions, and that's really dependent on the model of the register.
Can I jump in too? Because if someone wanted to have a custom image, it could be whatever operating system they want and have licensing for, like Windows 11 or Windows 10 LTSC or something like that, right? Is that correct, Paul?
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you.
And we have another question on how long does it take to configure a register if you don't use an image drive?
I would say, depending on what functions or features you're installing on the register, whether you're installing offline or not, it can range from 2 to 3 hours without an image. And with an image, it usually runs about an hour.
Great. And you can use the same drive, the thumb drive, for every POS terminal, right? You don't need a
Correct.
separate drive.
Yep. As long as it's the same model computer.
What are some of the additional items you can add to a custom image?
That is a great question. So with the custom image, you can add specific software that you want to install. We've had customers request to have management software installed on their image. So it's just one task that they don't have to do after the computer's imaged. Certain drivers can be installed. They can be configured up to a certain point, depending on what the driver is and the software and how it interfaces or communicates with a particular device. Certain files can just be copied on. There are some limitations, but there's also it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what you want to have installed on there. But there are other things that can be incorporated into the image.
Like an accounting package, is that something that could be incorporated?
Possibly, like maybe the back end of it. I would probably, for an accounting package, I would probably want to rename the computer after the image to really do the install piece of it.
Okay.
Just because I'm sure that the accounting package uses that computer name to communicate through the software at some point.
Okay.
But again, that would be a little trial and error in regards to that, because we'd walk through that process. And if the customer decided to, kind of move in that direction, we'd walk through the imaging process. And then at the very end, we'd be able to test it and validate that it does work. And then.
Does the image setup open, closed ports and Windows firewall rules?
It does.
Based on the RCS best practices?
It does. Yep. That's part of the image. And there's other SQL optimization settings that are applied to the image, and just power saving settings and some other really good practice settings that we've learned over the course of 20 plus years.
Are you able to update an RCS image flash drive after upgrading to a different version of Counterpoint?
Can you say that one more time?
I think do you have to get a new image drive if you upgrade your Counterpoint version?
As of right now, Counterpoint's not part of the image.
Okay, so the version of Counterpoint shouldn't matter.
Unless there's like maybe version specific drivers, right?
Yeah, I mean, if the drivers or the devices for the register were set up with, we'll say, an OPOS setup structure versus an escape pause, and you were moving from OPOS to escape pause, then maybe, but those could be pre-configured into the image.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't see a lot of value unless, I guess I'd have to really get a good grasp on what you're trying to solve for. But essentially, to answer the question, if the image drive is set up so that you can recapture and it's large enough, you could deploy one image, and then if you wanted to, say, update the image, you could recapture that another version of that image, if that answers your question.
I think that does. That's my assumption. Ryan, along with the imaging guide, can we also send out the NCR or the RCS best practices guide so that every end user knows the best practice settings to have on their registers, even if they don't have an image drive currently?
I believe so. Is that something we have, Paul?
Yeah, we have that.
Yes, we can send that as well.
That's a very helpful document, especially when there's any troubleshooting on like connectivity or freezing with payment terminals or anything like that.
Great. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else come through. Appreciate everyone's time. Thanks, Ariel, for jumping on, and Paul.